This is Barley Harvest. We're cutting this barley with the combine, and then to keep the combine rolling non-stop, we have the cart that offloads me every time I'm full, and then that way the combine is going all day long. It's thrashing barley and never has to stop. Makes up for a lot of time emptying out the hopper. The hopper holds about 300 bushel. A tandem truckload is around 700, so I can fit about two and a half hoppers in a truckload. So I would have to stop 3 times to fill a truck if I didn't have a cart. Helps a ton. Back before we started using carts, and then when we started, the difference in what we were getting done in a day was almost felt like having a whole nother combine going, because we were saving so much time. Our operation, we grow, I'd say a little over a third of our acres are sugar beets, and then maybe another third is barley, and the other third is seed alfalfa and a little bit of corn silage and some grain corn and hay makes up the other third. We're saving all of our straw. We've got 650 acres of this barley. We're saving all the windrows. It'll make about a ton per acre, and it will be used for bedding for the corrals in the wintertime, and also we'll feed it, we'll mix it in. There's not a lot of nutritional value to the straw, but it's a good filler. When you mix it with something high in protein, it's a good combination of the two. So like a common mixture with straw would be like a distiller's grain or hay and silage. It's going to be a lot of baling for poor Dad. I don't know if he's real excited about it. We get down negative temperatures a lot in the wintertime, so the bedding helps keep the animals warm in the winter, keeps them off of the snow and ice, and provides a little insulation from the ground. And then of course with the heifers, calving provides a nice shelter area and dry spot for the calves to be born in. It's pretty vital to that. A heifer is a cow that's first time being pregnant and having a calf. All of our heifers, we AI them. The reason for that is to get some better genetics, some outside genetics in the herd. We can get those genetics without having to buy a really expensive bull. We can just buy straws of semen for those. The heifers, we breed them to calve in first part of March, very cold. We watch them pretty closely. We calve them out in our corrals at the farm. They require a little bit more attention. We watch the heifers close, and then after their first year of having a calf, they go out with the herd, and the rest of the herd is bred to calve in May when it's a little warmer. They're out on green grass in the pasture, and they are mature enough to handle it better on their own. This stuff is it's thrashing a little bit harder. You're seeing the beards still on a lot of those kernels. That's not real typical. This field and these conditions right now are a little bit tougher, and the head and the stem and everything is not breaking up as easy as it usually does. The moisture's running 11.7, 12%. Normally the moisture is like 9, and when it's 9, it doesn't take anything to thrash the seed off of the stem and head. I've got to adjust my combine I speed up the rotor to thrash it more, and then there's concaves outside of the rotor that the rotor thrashes against, and I've tightened those up real tight. In the hot afternoons, the conditions change and the moisture comes down. Then you slow your rotor way down and open up the concaves wider, and it doesn't take near as much to grind the seed off of the head, basically. So that's the moisture there. This is the yield. So this is the speed of the rotor. This is the concave position here. This is the fan speed. And then the sieve, there's a top sieve and a bottom sieve that the barley's all fallen through, and there's wind blowing up through the sieves. So that's the fan speed, and that wind is blowing the chaff out the back. This field is about 70 acres, 75. We should be able to almost get it in a day. I think I can get, if I'm doing pretty good, 60 acres in a day with this machine. This is malt barley. So back in the day, Coors came in this area probably, gosh, it must have been early 70s. They had a specific variety that they wanted to use in their brew for a specific flavor. So they were willing to pay a premium for that, and they liked our area in the way that we grew it. We just came from some heavier soil, and we had to put a little more down pressure to get the seed that, inch and a quarter or so is what we're shooting for on the depth. So I'm gonna go check that out. It was a good quality. We're an irrigated area, so we were able to provide a consistent yield and a consistent quality, and they paid us a premium for that, and it was a good relationship. Now I feel like that relationship has dwindled a little bit, in that I don't feel like we're really getting a premium for our barley anymore. They've merged with Miller and I think Molson also. So like 3 big malting companies have merged together now, and they're using this variety across the board on all of those different brews that they're putting together. This is a barley as opposed to like wheat that would be grown for bread. We like this crop because, for one, they've got an elevator here in Worland, a facility that they take delivery of the barley. Well, actually, they take delivery of half of it, and then we store half of it until February, March, and then they take delivery of the other half at that time. They just don't have enough room to store all the crop at once. That happened about, 10 years ago now. They started requiring all the growers to provide their own storage to store up to half of the crop. But the other thing that draws us to this crop is the potential for pasture afterwards. So we harvest this in late July, early August, and then we reseed barley back into these fields, and we get pasture back out of that for the cows in the wintertime. And that's what they eat in the wintertime because
they're super hungry.
Yeah, and there's usually so much snow out at the ranch that they can't find any grass, so bring them into the fields so they have more food to eat, huh?
Yeah.
And we also have barley regrowth
That the
cows eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty big deal for us. If it wasn't for that, we'd probably be looking pretty hard at putting these acres into maybe hay or corn now. Other commodities have picked up in price quite a bit here recently. This one hasn't so much. you know, we're hoping to see a little better price next year. Okay, this is a yield map on the 2630 display. This combine produces a map of the yield on the go. So we zoom in here. This is us. This is the yield as we're going. You can see our different passes coming through the field. So the green is above 170 bushel and so on. But pretty neat tool to be able to take that map later on and kind of look and see where you might have underwatered or where your weaker acres might be and what you can do to improve that. Maybe your nozzle package of your pivot is not doing well for you. I wish we could do that with sugar beets. It'd be really cool, but nobody figure out how to make an accurate yield map of sugar beet field. I pretty much live on this combine during barley harvest. It's usually from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. On top of that, I need to watch over 28 pivots and make sure that they're all working properly. So technology has allowed me to be connected to those pivots and monitor when one is down or one's not doing what it's supposed to, and or start and stop it. The beauty of these pivots is the connectivity. They alert me every time they get stuck, so I know right where I need to go when we're shut down and have a minute to get away. So without this connectivity, I have to manually drive to every pivot, which with 28 pivots would take me all day every day to go just check them if there's anything that needs to be started, stopped, anything. You know, if you got to drive to the panel of every pivot, some of them are full circles, so you got to drive through the mud, cross all the pivot tracks, beat your truck up. Connectivity with FieldNet is extremely important to me. Big time saver there. I can do that all from the combine now, which is a huge deal for me. We're set up with RTK accuracy on our GPS. We're running 2400 monitor with a 3000 receiver. They call it sub-inch accuracy, which means that it has the repeatability from one pass to the next within an inch of each other. We're on circle track right here, so if you set a pivot point, we're just following GPS lines with this combine that are 30 feet apart all across the whole world. It's pretty cool. So this header is 30 foot wide, and every pass through the field we are taking a full 30 foot width of barley because of the GPS. It is accurate within an inch, and that's repeatable within an inch. If I were to be doing this by hand, I would give myself a foot cushion on the edge just for error, and so I'd only really be taking 29 feet. It's RTK, which is references a point on Earth versus lower forms of signal, which SF1, SF2 references satellites, and they give satellite drift, but RTK does not. So I can make a pass, and 6 months later I can come back and it'll drive in that exact spot in the field. With sugar beets, we strip till and then we follow with the planter. So we strip till in the spring, and then we come back with the planter and drive in that exact spot and plant that beet in that little 4-inch zone. At harvest time, we come back in that exact row with the GPS and we dig that exact spot in the field. Sometimes we strip till into a cornfield, so we shift the line over. We're on 22-inch rows. We shift the line 11 inches one way, and then we come through there and strip till and plant 11 inches shifted over. So we're not planting right on top of the corn stalk. We're planting exactly in between the two corn rows and plant the beets through there. Pretty cool what we can do with GPS. And you can text and drive, so that's beneficial. Have a hand free to answer the phone. So this is a Draper head. I just got this head this year used. My old one was an auger head. It had an auger that gathered the barley to the middle rather than the Draper belt. This head its job is to cut the barley off at the bottom, gather it to the middle, and feed it into the center, into the combine. And then the feeder house of the combine takes it in and runs it through the process of thrashing the kernels off of the head. The Draper is supposed to be a little bit better head because it does a better job feeding it evenly into the combine. Whereas the auger head, call it a rigid head, it can tend to bring it in clumps and a little bit uneven. And it turned out real good. This is good barley. I think it's gonna average 150, 160 bushel an acre. In a year like this, that's a pretty good crop. This year it got hot and dry early on, and that kind of stresses the barley, and you've got to really be on top of the water, keep things wet enough. So the more water you can pour to it early on, the better, and just keep up with it. I would say we're probably 80 to 90% pivot irrigated now. We've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years putting up sprinklers in every little nook and cranny we can put one feasibly. We've done it. We've put in 2 pivots a year on average for about the last 10 years. So we've put in 20 sprinkler pivots in 10 years. There's been some government assistance programs that help, and there's no way we could have done that without the assistance. And the pivots are so much more efficient on water, manpower, production. We see a production increase with sprinkler irrigation versus flood irrigation. Everything in our area is irrigated. We get like 7 inches of annual rainfall. Our old method of irrigation before pivots was flood irrigation. With flood irrigation, you use gravity to run the water down a row. You put on probably about 3 inches of water per irrigation. A lot of times in heavier, flatter ground, it's just too much water to put on all at once, especially when the barley is young. It does not handle 3 inches of water very well early in the stage. We right away started seeing 30, 40 bushel an acre yield increases when we went to pivot irrigation. And it's taken a lot of years to really dial in how to irrigate with a pivot and how much to put on, and through the years we've almost doubled our yields with pivot irrigation as opposed to the flood. Other crops are a lot the same way. You have to be really careful not to put on too much water in those early stages of the crop. That's where the pivots have really shined for us.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.